Now, as I said at the top of the show, a new legislative study committee created last year by the General Assembly has been meeting over the last few weeks, including this week, exploring the possibility of breaking up the state's largest school districts. To talk about it, we have representatives from those areas. First, we have Monika Johnson-Hostler. Monika is the chair of the Wake County School Board, the Wake County Board of Education. And next to her is Representative Chaz Beasley. Representative Beasley, in his first term in the General Assembly, represents Mecklenburg and parts of Charlotte. So let me talk to you a little bit about the bills themselves. They were introduced last year in the General Assembly, both by Representative Bill Brawley, one of your, a Republican colleague from Charlotte, to set up this committee to study breaking up large school districts. And there was also a separate bill around Matthews and Mint Hill to create separate charter districts. So I guess my first question, I'll ask you first, Monika, is where is all this coming from? I mean, where is this activity? You're the chair of the school board. I'm guessing the public isn't shy about letting you know what their concerns are. Is this something you've been hearing from them?
We haven't. I mean, so of course we have lots of things that we hear from the public and parents about in Wake County, as do my colleagues across the state. Being the largest school district, I would say the largest things that we hear is about assignment, but assignment should not be equated with breaking up the district. And so that's not language we've heard from our constituents in Wake County. It's definitely language we've heard from your colleagues at the General Assembly.
Well, Representative Beasley, I mean, I guess the same question from you. I mean, you're obviously new to the General Assembly. All your legislators are out talking to constituents. You talk to your colleagues. I mean, is this, again, where did this all sort of come from? It just sort of feels like it just sort of came out of nowhere in a lot of ways.
Well, I think this is a prime example of what happens when there is a bit of a disconnect between the parents and the people who are in positions of power. I have not heard from many of my residents, many of the people who are in my district, which is actually really close to Matthews and Mint Hill, although it does not include those two towns. And what we've heard is that everyone wants their kids to get the best education that they possibly can, and that does not necessarily mean breaking up CMS into smaller units or allowing for a first of its kind, one of its kind, charter school system within and managed by municipalities. So I think we have to keep in mind that when all these projects are coming up, when all these ideas are coming up, you have to get the parents involved early, and that that deserve a real choice and a real part of their voice to be heard in these kinds of decisions. Right
now, have you been talking to I guess you would say the Wake County, where we record the show in Wake County, the delegation? There are members. Representative Chris Malone is one who's on that actual committee about school. What are they telling you, and I guess more importantly, what are you telling them?
I think probably more importantly what we're telling them. I respect my colleagues and your colleagues on Jones Street, that their job is to tell us what the bill is and then get our feedback. So as you can imagine, we've done a great job, I believe, in giving them all the information of why Wake County is a great district the way it is. And several of those choices I think are most important to highlight, as you just mentioned, Representative, that parents have choice in Wake County. And I think regardless of some of the things that parents may not be especially happy with, they're happy with the quality of the education that we are providing to students in Wake County. And they're also at least happy that we have a process where we get parent feedback. So I always tell people, we may not give you the answer you want, but the process is an open process, and it's very much so our constituents and parents are a part of it. And our choice program is one of the best programs possible, I believe, in the state. I mean, we can look at our county and see that we are maintaining, we're still one of the best magnet school programs in the country. And so I think our accolades speak for us, but more importantly, none of us on our Wake County Board of Education are resting on our laurels. We're continuously engaging our community to how do we strengthen the places where we may not be as strong in the eyes of parents and students, but also we continue to have the dialogue with our community at large, even for those citizens who don't have students. We are very clear in Wake County that the largest number of our constituents actually don't have students in our community, and I think that's what we've also been encouraging the Wake County delegation is constituents with or without students, we've engaged them in this conversation, in this process, right. And we've given them the information of here's what's efficient, here's based on the data that's been received in this committee, here's where there would be inefficiencies in Wake County if you broke it up, and then we've also had the conversations with our municipalities of what the impact would be if this
Well, you raise efficiencies and inefficiencies. There are really a couple of threads that I've been seeing, and both at the committee hearings and the coverage about it. One is that it doesn't sound like that it's going to lead to efficiencies. In fact, the opposite, that breaking up large districts would actually cost more. And the other one is concerns about resegregation. I mean, look, our schools are already moving, becoming more segregated by race and by class. Charlotte, Mecklenburg has been an area that was sort of at the forefront for integration, kind of going in the opposite direction. What are your thoughts, I guess, on those couple of fronts?
Well, this week is the 50th anniversary of the loss of Martin Luther King and his assassination. Unfortunately, what we are seeing is that the numbers bear out that we are just as segregated as when we lost Martin Luther King, and that is a really sad fact that we have to address. The reality is this is a study bill, and oftentimes in the General Assembly, when there's a study bill, I support them. The reason why I didn't support this study bill to break up districts is because there's actually a very large amount of study and data and research on this issue already, and almost every one that you see says that there is a major problem with resegregation, and there's also a major problem with student outcomes. You see that the haves end up getting a little bit more, but the have-nots end up losing a lot more. Right. And so we need to make sure that in these types of ideas that we look at what has already been done, because many of these questions have already been answered, and unfortunately the answer is not breaking up our school districts.
Right. Now let me ask you, Monika, the Wake County specifically, I mentioned Charlotte-Mecklenburg seen as a national leader in integration 20 years ago. Wake County, up until very recently, maybe 10 years ago, was also, you mentioned magnets. You talked about magnets. That was Wake County's sort of really golden ticket, if you will. They sort of said, we're going to use our magnet programs to integrate our schools, and it'll make them places that folks want to go. And it worked. We've kind of moved away from that in Wake County. Is it no longer a priority? Is it something that we need to, as the chair of the Board of Education, you want it to be more of a priority?
I would say that our board believes that magnet is still our largest priority. It's interesting, you know, it's the anniversary of the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. It's also for us, we continue to remind ourselves, we have a video that we keep showing of where Wake County and how we became the Wake County public school system. And so you spoke to what the integration looked like. Magnet is what brought Wake County Public Schools together in 1976, when indeed the General Assembly agreed to actually, from their seats on Jones Street, decide that we would be a merged public school system. And so I think the irony of that is worth stating. And so the magnets, while it's still our priority, we also realize from 43 years ago, Wake County is no longer the exact same dynamics in terms of size, geography, but also the size of our municipalities in Wake County. So while we still believe that it's a huge draw, and we still see from all corners of our district students coming to our magnet schools, which, as you stated, was our golden ticket, I believe it's still the ticket. What we have to do is also realize that our infrastructure of driving to our inner Raleigh schools is, quite frankly, one of the largest barriers, and we continue to push transportation.
Yeah, we see that in Charlotte too. Let me ask you, we've only got about a minute or so left. Wake County is the largest school district. Charlotte's the second largest. Why wasn't Wake County invited to speak before this committee? It would seem like an obvious choice if you're the largest district to sort of talk about it, but you haven't been.
We haven't been asked. We actually asked to be asked so that we could speak about our district. I mean, I would have to be, you know, guessing why we weren't asked, but what I would clearly say as one of the folks who were involved in merging our school district is oftentimes when we're talking about these things, we say that we're talking about what research and data shows us, but these are really emotional decisions, and I believe the chair is Representative Brawley, who represents the Charlotte area and not Wake County, and I think that may be, quite frankly, one of the simplest ways to say that we weren't asked, but we're here to discuss it.
We're gonna keep talking about this in our next segment, but thank you both for being here. We're gonna watch. There's a meeting today, and then maybe some more they have to do. I think, Chaz, what, May 1st is when the deadline is?
Correct.
The committee will submit its report. So thank you both for being here. When we come back, we're going to continue our discussion with an attorney with a great deal of experience in this subject, including a case pending before the North Carolina Supreme Court. But see if you can answer this question. In 1988, 43% of black students in the South attended schools that were majority white schools. By 2011, what was that percentage?